Welcome to a system on the absolute brink. You know, the modern gig economy sold us all this frictionless dream, right? Easy money, seamless travel. But behind the scenes, modern hosting has morphed into a literal high-stakes tightrope walk. We are looking at a massive, growing crisis where property owners are finding themselves completely vulnerable to a system they just cannot control.
And that brings us to the massive takeaway we're unpacking in this explainer today. Hosting is no longer just about hospitality. One unverified complaint, literally just one, can absolutely destroy a business. We're pulling back the curtain on this gig economy drama to show you exactly how unpleasable renters and ruthless algorithmic enforcement are pushing property owners to the absolute edge. To really understand how this entire system breaks down, we must first look at Chapter 1, the expectation gap.
Recent reports are highlighting a really deep frustration over a massive disconnect. On one side, you have unique, rustic homes with inherent quirks. But on the other side, you've got the modern guest showing up and expecting sterile, five-star hotel perfection. They want the charming vibe of a 19th century cabin, but they demand the flawless, sanitized environment of a luxury resort. And this really matters, because when this clash forces hosts to either over-modernize or face harsh penalties, it ultimately just leads to fewer unique options, way stricter rules, and higher prices for everyone else.
Now that we understand those impossible expectations, let's look at the outrageous demands placed on these properties in Chapter 2, Historic Homes and Modern Demands. Okay, so let's look at a couple of highly viral scenarios driving the conversation right now. The first one involves this cozy, charming home built way back in 1928. Guests deliberately booked this historic property, presumably looking for that specific vintage appeal. But the moment they walked through the front door, the situation went completely off the rails.
The specific complaint here is honestly staggering. The guests were absolutely appalled by the inherent architecture, stating flat out that they cannot possibly stay here. Why? Well, because the ceilings were 7 feet high. They complained the ceilings were extremely low, acting as if the host had somehow maliciously hidden the fundamental, nearly century-old structural reality of the building.
And they didn't just complain. Because of that completely standard historical ceiling height, the guests demanded a full 10-day refund. No way, right? Imagine losing 10 entire days of your livelihood simply because a house from 1928 doesn't feel exactly like a brand new luxury condo.
And this builds into even more extreme examples. Consider this host's absolute nightmare scenario involving a working 6-bedroom farmhouse from the 1850s. A guest booked this massive, rustic property for an entire month. But instead of settling in and enjoying it, the guests spent their absolute first night frantically scrubbing the wainscoting of this 170-year-old working farm.
After this frantic deep clean, the guest actually pulled the host aside to deliver a completely unhinged lecture on property maintenance. They literally told the host that they needed to, quote, work out issues with your siblings to keep the house up to their personal standards. I mean, it's a stunning overstep. They were treating a historic family property like it was some underperforming corporate hotel branch.
But nitpicky complaints are really just the beginning. We have to examine the tactical abuse in Chapter 3, the Weaponized Review.
According to host reports, guests are actually learning to game the system through what is basically tactical extortion. Here's how it plays out step by step. Step 1, heavily complain about minor issues, like a bit of mud or a missing AC unit. Step 2, the host acts in good faith and offers a full refund if they want to leave. Step 3, the guest flat out refuses to leave, just enjoying that free leverage. And Step 4, after they're safely back home, they drop it terrible review anyway, ensuring maximum reputational damage even when the host tried absolutely everything to make it right.
Now that we clearly see how reviews are weaponized, we have to look at the biggest threat of all, Chapter 4, the algorithm threat.
This is the terrifying systemic mechanism that makes these hypercritical renters so incredibly dangerous. The shadow ban. A single, entirely unverified complaint from a guest can trigger an automated algorithm. Instantly, a host loses their status or their listing is just hidden entirely. There's no trial, there's no human review, just a cold, automatic trigger that can kill a small business overnight.
To see just how easily this system is tripped, let's look at a highly discussed thread regarding a barbecue gas leak. A guest contacted a host claiming they smelled a dangerous gas leak coming from the outdoor grill.
So the host investigated and the reality was entirely benign. An empty propane tank had just been left open by the previous guest. That's it. No leak, no danger. But the current guest flat out refused to believe the host's rational explanation and demanded that a certified professional be dispatched immediately.
Now, from the host's perspective, this was a clear algorithmic threat. Because of how the platform is structured, any claim containing buzzwords like safety or gas leak, even if it's totally fabricated or easily explained, causes genuine terror for owners. They know that this single unverified safety claim could result in an immediate, automated suspension from the platform. According to widespread host reports, the guest wields this disproportionate, devastating power, and they know exactly how to use it.
This systemic threat brings us to our inevitable result. Chapter 5, the burnout bottom line.
The overarching sentiment out there right now is pure burnout. The systemic reality leaves property owners completely unsupported. Dispute resolution heavily favors the guest, hosts are forced to absorb extreme financial damages, and they take all the reputational hits from those weaponized reviews we talked about. They have to act as full-time customer service and crisis management without any safety net from the very platform that relies on them to exist.
The expectation gap, weaponized reviews, and automated shadow bans have created a highly unsustainable ecosystem. When the platform's algorithm empowers unverified complaints and property owners report feeling entirely defenseless against hypercritical renters, the gig economy's very foundation begins to fracture. So the real question is this: when guests hold the absolute power and hosts absorb all the damage, how long before burnout completely breaks the system?